Hi, I am River Lightbearer, owner of River Evolutions Healing, Channeling, and Coaching, here to help you create and evolve into your best life. And today I wanted to talk to you about grounding techniques. All of us feel stressed and anxious sometimes. Well, okay, I won't say all because that's like really absolute, but I don't know anybody personally who doesn't feel that way from time to time. I think that at least most people sometimes have times like that. Additionally, um, people who have experienced trauma sometimes are triggered. And I want to be really clear. I'll do another video at some point about what trigger actually means, but just a little quick thing. Triggered doesn't mean, oh, I feel upset about that. It doesn't mean I don't like that or that annoys me. A trigger is, or feeling triggered is a psychological thing. It is a response to a stimulus that reminds you of a trauma. And for somebody with a trauma history, when they're triggered, it could be just this reminds me of the trauma and it makes me feel the way I felt back then. Or it could be like full immersion into the trauma. Some people who are triggered in that way, when the trigger happens, they're right back in that trauma. They're not in the present day. They're back then, whenever back then was. So hearing people say, "Oh, that triggers me. I don't like it," like minimizes the actual meaning of trigger, and that's kind of one of my push button issues. So I'm going to talk about that in the future, and I'm actually going to make a note right now as I'm recording this video to remind myself that I want to do a video about the meaning of trigger in the future. But that's not what today's video is about, although it is relevant for times when you've been triggered. Um, Grounding is a way of connecting yourself back to reality so that the trigger, the anxiety, the stress, whatever, has less of a hold on you and you're better able to manage it. Here's my disclaimer. If you've seen any of my Facebook Lives, you know that I throw this in. I am not a licensed mental health professional. I am not a licensed medical professional. I am an energy healing practitioner. I am a trained life coach and mindset coach. I am somebody with a trauma history and a diagnosis of anxiety disorder who lives with this stuff and has taken the time to learn the tools that work for me. What works for me isn't going to work for everybody. I want to be clear about that also. So these videos are me telling you what has worked for me. And if it's something that you haven't tried, it might be worth trying to see if it works for you. So if you are feeling anxious, if you've been triggered, if you are just feeling stressed even, grounding techniques can be a way that help bring you back to the present time when you're better able to manage and cope with what's going on. It helps disengage that emotional reaction that gets your brain going in a frenzy so that you are able to approach something from a more rational standpoint. If you're familiar with DBT at all, dialectical behavioral therapy, the goal isn't to be 100% rational because that means eliminating emotions, and eliminating emotions isn't always good either. But you also don't want to be 100% emotional. You're actually trying to find the mesh between the two, which in DBT is called wise mind. I think. I might be confusing that with witchcraft. No, I'm right. There's a lot of overlap between psychological things and energy and magic and witchy things. But again, I digress. So, the first grounding technique is really simple. Breathe. When you get anxious, whether that's a trigger, fear response, or just anxiety, or an anxiety response, or you're just feeling anxious and having anxiety are not necessarily the same thing. But your body tenses, your lungs tense, and you're breathing very shallowly. That's why sometimes when somebody gets really emotional or really anxious or frightened, they pass out. You're not breathing deeply enough. So the first and the simplest grounding technique is to breathe deeply. And usually what I do is I close my eyes and I just take a deep breath in through my nose, if my nose isn't stuffed up, and exhale slowly through my mouth. And I'll do that 4 or 5 times. And that helps my body relax, which helps my mind relax. Mind, body, energy, they're all intertwined. So if your mind is going 8 zillion miles a second with anxiety and you're able to relax your body, that helps relax your mind. Just like when your mind is going 8 zillion miles a second, your body tenses up also. If you relax your body, it helps relax your mind. So that simple act of just taking 4 or 5 deep breaths, if possible, inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. Sometimes when I'm in that state, I've been crying, so I can't actually inhale through my nose. But just a long, slow inhale and a slow exhale, because the slowness helps to relax you. Another grounding technique that I haven't really used because I tend not to be able to think of it when I'm in a state where I need to do a grounding technique, but I know people for whom it works great. And that's just looking around the room and noticing what's there. So if I were putting that technique into practice, I would say I'm sitting in my computer chair and it's kind of wobbling back and forth as I move. There's a camera sitting on top of my computer because my computer camera doesn't work very well. And the curtain behind the camera is supposed to be blue, but it kind of looks greenish to me right now. And outside the window, there's a squirrel sitting on the fence post. The act of noticing and verbalizing out loud, if you can, what you are noticing also helps ground you because it brings you back to the present. Your mind's going all over the place, and if you've been triggered, you might be stuck in the past. If you are having an anxiety attack, you might be stuck in the future or in all the catastrophic possibilities. So the act of simply looking around and verbalizing what you see or feel or hear can bring you back to the present moment and can calm you because you're disengaging your brain from that spiral and forcing it to, or turning its focus to, this thing that's right here in front of you. An extension of that I haven't used, but again, I know people for whom it works, is to intentionally use the 5 senses. And one way that I've seen that described is name 5 things that you see, 4 things that you hear, 3 things that you feel, 2 that you smell, 1 that you taste, or something like that. So if I were going to do that, I might say, okay, I see a curtain that's supposed to be blue, but it's green. I see a gray curtain that's partly covering my calendar. I see the leaves turning yellow. I see the pickup truck outside the window, and I see one of my crystals on my desk in front of me. I hear my computer humming. I hear one of my cats batting a piece of paper around. I hear somebody walking around upstairs. I hear the wind blowing, and so on. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because that would make this video really, really long. And the final grounding technique that I've learned and that I do use at times, I really love using this one on an airplane because it makes my brain go whole. Um, and this is a technique that I actually learned in my study of witchcraft, which is literally grounding, in that you are visualizing or feeling your energy connecting to the ground. So I visualize it sometimes like a tree. I'm a tree, pretty green leaves and all of that, but I have roots, and my roots are extending into the ground and connecting with the ground. And the energy, my energy, is cycling into the ground, and the ground's energy, the earth's energy, is cycling back up into me. For me, that works really, really well as a grounding technique, because not only does it calm me and help me connect to the present moment, but it also helps me feel connected. And when I've been triggered or when I'm having an anxiety attack, one thing I feel is very isolated and alone. So getting that connection back by doing this tree visualization really helps me. There are a lot of grounding techniques that exist. Some of them are more energy, witchy sort of things. Some of them are more psychiatric, psychological sort of things. But if you experience being triggered, if you experience anxiety, or even if you just experience stress, I really encourage you to look into different grounding techniques that might be able to help you at those times. Obviously, there are other forms of help available as well, and I always encourage people to seek out professional help if they feel that they need it, or other types of support. But especially in the moment, if you are dealing with being triggered, if you are dealing with an anxiety attack or a panic attack, if you are able to implement these strategies, they can help you de-escalate enough to put other strategies into place, or to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I need help right now. So if you know of other grounding techniques that you think would benefit people, I would love to see you leave a comment on this video. If you have questions, I'm happy to try to answer, or to look for resources that might be able to answer your question. I intend to record these videos once a week and post them on Thursdays. And sometimes they're going to be about things like this. Sometimes they're about energy healing, channeling, anything that I feel would benefit you in your healing journey, your recovery journey, your progressing through life journey. Because when I say my tagline, create and evolve into your best life, I believe we all deserve to live a good, beneficial life that we feel happy in. And so I want to offer things that might help you do that. So if you're interested in seeing these videos on an ongoing basis, please subscribe to the channel. I would absolutely love you forever if you did that. And I will be back with another video next week. Meanwhile, Take care.